The year is 221 BC. For the first time in history, the warring kingdoms of China are united under one man. His name is Qin Shi Huang, and he is not just a king. He declares himself emperor, the first true emperor China has ever known. He is ruthless, brilliant, and absolutely terrified of one thing: death. Look at what he builds. The Great Wall, stretching thousands of miles across mountains and deserts, a monument to his paranoia about invasion. The Terracotta Army, 8,000 life-sized clay soldiers buried with him, an entire phantom legion to guard his tomb in the afterlife. These are not the projects of a normal man. These are the works of someone who believes he can cheat the inevitable. But here is what history does not tell you in the textbooks. While Qin Shi Huang is busy conquering kingdoms and building empires, he is also conducting a secret, desperate search. He sends expeditions across the known world, hundreds of men sailing into uncharted waters, climbing sacred mountains, searching for one thing: the elixir of immortality. He's not looking for metaphorical immortality through legacy. He wants to literally live forever. His fear of death is so consuming that it becomes an obsession that dominates every decision he makes. Let me take you back to the beginning to understand how this obsession was born. Qin Shi Huang was born as Yingzheng in 259 BC. His childhood was not one of pampered royalty. His father was a hostage prince in a rival state, and young Zheng spent his early years watching political intrigue, betrayal, and sudden executions. He learned early that power is the only protection against death, and even power cannot guarantee safety. When he became king of Qin at the age of 13, multiple assassination attempts were made against him. One attempt involved a hidden dagger in a map scroll, rolled out before him in the throne room. He survived by pure instinct, grabbing the assassin's sleeve and running around a pillar until his guards could intervene. These experiences carved something deep into his psyche. Death was not an abstract concept for him. It was a constant, lurking presence. Every meal could be poisoned. Every advisor could be a traitor. Every shadow could hide a blade. By the time he conquered the last of the warring states and unified China, he had survived dozens of attempts on his life. He had won. He was the most powerful human being in the known world. But the fear never left him. The emperor surrounds himself with alchemists and court physicians, men who claim to possess ancient knowledge, secret formulas passed down from the gods themselves. These are not frauds in his eyes. These are the most trusted advisors in his inner circle. The head alchemist is a man whose name history has nearly forgotten, but his influence over the emperor is total. He speaks in riddles and ancient terminology, quoting texts that claim the Yellow Emperor of legend ascended to heaven and became immortal through alchemical practices. These alchemists present the emperor with a theory. They explain that the human body contains both yin and yang energies, and that death occurs when these energies fall out of balance. They tell him that certain substances, when refined and purified through alchemical processes, can stabilize these energies permanently, freezing the body in a state of eternal youth. The key ingredient in this stabilization, they claim, is cinnabar, a bright red mineral. But cinnabar in its raw form is not enough. It must be heated, refined, and transformed. And when you heat cinnabar, what you extract is pure mercury. They tell him exactly what he wants to hear. They tell him immortality is possible. They present him with a substance they call the divine elixir, a shimmering silver liquid that catches the light like liquid starlight. This substance, they assure him, will stop his aging, fortify his body, and grant him eternal life. The substance is mercury. Now you need to understand something about mercury in the ancient world. Mercury is not just considered medicinal, it is considered divine. Ancient Chinese texts describe it as living silver, a substance that contains the essence of transformation itself. It is the only metal that is liquid at room temperature. It moves like water, but weighs like metal. It cannot be grasped. It rolls away from your fingers. When you try to break it apart, it reforms into perfect spheres. To the ancients, this behavior seems supernatural, beyond the laws of nature. If any substance could grant immortality, surely it would be this mysterious, ungraspable element that seems to exist between the solid and liquid worlds. The alchemists are not necessarily trying to poison him. In fact, many of them likely consume small amounts of mercury themselves, believing in their own theories. They genuinely believe in what they are prescribing. This is the height of ancient medical knowledge, the cutting edge of what they consider science, and it is dead wrong. Mercury is not a medicine. Mercury is a neurotoxin, one of the most insidious poisons known to humanity. Qin Shi Huang begins his regimen with the fervor of a religious convert. Every morning, at the same hour, he takes his dose of mercury pills, carefully prepared by his doctors. The pills are not crude. They are works of art, ground mercury mixed with jade dust, pearl powder, gold leaf, and rare herbs, all compressed into small spheres and coated with honey. They are dissolved in heated wine, creating a silver shimmer in the cup. The emperor drinks them down, feeling the metallic taste coat his tongue, and he believes he is drinking divinity itself. He takes them religiously, with the discipline of a military commander executing a campaign strategy. He believes he is building immortality inside his body, day by day, dose by dose. He feels powerful at first. His alchemists tell him that the warmth he feels spreading through his chest is the immortal energy taking root. They tell him that the slight tingling in his fingers is his meridians opening to receive the divine essence. He believes every word. He feels like he is winning the war against death. But mercury does not work the way they think it does. Mercury is not a medicine. It is a poison that accumulates. The human body has no mechanism to excrete mercury efficiently. Every dose he takes adds to the total burden. It settles into his organs, his kidneys, his liver, his brain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, that protective membrane that is supposed to keep toxins out of the central nervous system, and mercury slips through like a thief in the night. The effects are insidious, creeping, almost invisible at first. In the first year of treatment, the emperor might even feel better. The placebo effect is powerful, especially for someone who desperately wants to believe. He attributes every positive feeling, every good day, every moment of vitality to the elixir. When he wakes up energized, he credits the mercury. When he successfully handles a difficult political situation, he believes the elixir is sharpening his mind. But by the second year, subtle changes begin. The symptoms start so subtly that no one, not even the emperor himself, recognizes them as symptoms. His hands develop a slight tremor. It is barely noticeable at first, just a tiny shake when he holds a brush to write imperial edicts. His advisors notice it during court sessions, the way his fingers twitch when he holds the imperial scrolls. They say nothing. To point out a weakness in the emperor is to invite execution. His temper, always fierce, begins to change in quality. Qin Shi Huang was always a harsh ruler, quick to order executions for disloyalty or failure. But now his anger becomes different. It becomes explosive and unpredictable, erupting over trivial matters. A servant brings tea that is slightly too hot, and the emperor orders the entire kitchen staff executed. A minister arrives 3 minutes late to a council meeting, and the emperor has him stripped of rank and exiled. These are not calculated displays of power. These are uncontrolled outbursts, and the court officials begin to walk on eggshells. His paranoia intensifies to pathological levels. He becomes convinced that assassination plots are everywhere. that his own officials are conspiring against him. He orders the construction of secret passageways between his palaces, so that no one can predict where he will sleep each night. He forbids anyone from knowing his exact location. He has body doubles created, men who look similar to him, dressed in imperial robes, sent out in decoy processions to confuse potential assassins. Some of this paranoia is probably justified. He is a brutal dictator who has executed thousands. Of course, people want him dead, but the paranoia goes beyond rational caution. He starts to believe that supernatural forces are working against him. He consults fortune tellers obsessively. He performs elaborate rituals to ward off evil spirits. And all the while, the real threat is not outside. It is in the jade cup he drinks from every morning. His sleep becomes disturbed. He wakes in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, his heart pounding, convinced that invisible assassins are in his bedchamber. His guards rush in to find him alone, wielding his sword at shadows. The emperor cannot explain the sensation, this overwhelming dread that grips him in the darkness. It is the mercury, disrupting his neurotransmitters, flooding his brain with false signals of danger. His mouth tastes metallic, constantly. No amount of wine or delicacies can wash it away. His gums begin to recede and bleed. The mercury is accumulating in his oral tissues, causing inflammation and tissue death. His teeth loosen in their sockets. When he bites into food, he sometimes feels a tooth shift. His personal physicians examine him and declare that this is normal, a sign that his old, mortal teeth are making way for new, immortal ones. He believes them because he must believe them. The alternative is too terrible to consider. His vision begins to fail. He experiences episodes where his peripheral vision darkens, as if he is looking through a tunnel. Colors become less vibrant. Reading becomes difficult. He orders larger characters written on all documents. His scribes comply, assuming the emperor's eyesight is simply aging. They do not realize that the mercury is destroying the neurons in his optical pathways. His memory, once sharp enough to recall every detail of military campaigns, the names of thousands of soldiers, the specifics of tax policies from years prior, starts to fail him. At first, it is small things. He forgets the name of a minor official. He repeats a question he asked an hour earlier. But gradually, it becomes more serious. He forgets entire conversations. He gives contradictory orders in the same day. During one council meeting, he proposes a building project. And when his ministers present the plans the following week, he has no memory of approving it and accuses them of forging his seal. His closest advisors notice. They exchange worried glances during court sessions. But no one dares to speak directly about it. One brave minister, a man who has served since the emperor's youth, carefully suggests that perhaps the emperor should rest more, take a break from the elixir treatments. The emperor's response is immediate and savage. He accuses the minister of treason, of secretly wanting him to die, of being part of an assassination conspiracy. The minister is arrested, tortured, and executed, along with his entire extended family, a practice called collective punishment. After that, no one suggests anything about the elixir ever again. But here is the cruelest part of this tragedy. Qin Shi Huang interprets all of these worsening symptoms as signs that he needs more of the elixir. His doctors, either genuinely believing their own theories, or two, terrified to contradict the emperor, tell him this is the purification process. They explain that his mortal body is resisting the transformation into an immortal form, that these symptoms are the death throes of his mortality fighting against the divine medicine. They tell him he must increase the dosage to overcome this resistance, to push through the barrier between mortal and immortal existence. So he does. He drinks more. He takes the pills more frequently. Instead of once a day, He takes them twice, then 3 times. He begins drinking mercury-laced wine throughout the day. The silver liquid becomes as common in his diet as water. He is poisoning himself faster, accelerating his own death, and he believes with absolute conviction that he is getting closer to his goal. Every symptom that should warn him to stop becomes, in his mind, proof that he needs to continue. The imperial court watches this happen in real time. They see the emperor deteriorating before their eyes, but they are trapped in a system where speaking truth to power is a death sentence. The ministers, the generals, the scholars, they all watch in silent horror as the most powerful man in the world slowly destroys himself. Some of them probably know, or at least suspect, that the mercury is poison. Mercury mines are deadly places to work. The miners die young, exhibiting many of the same symptoms the emperor now shows. But connecting those dots publicly would mean execution, so the knowledge remains unspoken. By his late 40s, Qin Shi Huang is a shadow of the conqueror he once was. The man who personally led cavalry charges, who stayed awake for days during military campaigns, who could intimidate generals with a single glance, is gone. In his place is a trembling, paranoid figure who can barely complete a court session without needing to rest. His face is gaunt. His skin has taken on a grayish pallor with a slight metallic sheen. His body trembles constantly, even when he sits on the throne. He can barely walk without assistance. When he does walk, his gait is unsteady, lurching, like a man on the deck of a ship in a storm. His mind drifts in and out of lucidity. He has moments of clarity where he seems almost like his old self, sharp and commanding. But these moments become rarer. More often, he sits on his throne, staring at nothing, his mouth slightly open, a thin line of drool at the corner of his lips. During court sessions, he sometimes does not recognize where he is. He addresses dead generals as if they are standing before him. He gives orders regarding military campaigns that ended decades ago. His advisors have learned to simply agree with everything and then quietly do what actually needs to be done, running the empire while the emperor fades. His grip on the empire he built is slipping, not because of rebellion or invasion, but because the mercury has turned his brain into a toxic wasteland. The neurons that once processed information with lightning speed are dying by the thousands, drowning in metallic poison. The synapses that formed his personality, his genius for strategy, his ruthless clarity of purpose, are misfiring, creating a chaos of false signals and deteriorating function. In the year 210 BC, Qin Shi Huang decides to tour his eastern territories. This is partially a political move to show himself to the people and remind them of his power. But it is also driven by his obsession. He has heard rumors of a sacred mountain in the east where immortals are said to dwell, and he wants to send another expedition to find them. His advisors try to dissuade him. His health is clearly failing. But the emperor insists, and no one can refuse the emperor. The journey is a disaster. The emperor travels in an elaborate carriage, but even the cushioned ride is agony for his poisoned body. Every bump in the road sends shocks of pain through his mercury-ravaged nervous system. He can keep down very little food. The tremors in his hands have spread to his entire body. At night, in the inns where they stop, his servants hear him crying out, tormented by hallucinations they cannot see. During the journey, his condition deteriorates rapidly. One morning, he cannot rise from his bed. His servants carry him back to his carriage, but he never regains full consciousness. His breathing becomes labored, a rattling sound in his chest. His body convulses intermittently, his back arching, his muscles contracting involuntarily as the mercury wreaks its final havoc on his central nervous system. The alchemists travel with the imperial procession, and they prepare more mercury elixir, trying desperately to save him. They increase the dose even further, believing that a massive final dose will complete the transformation and save the emperor's life. They literally pour mercury down his throat as he lies semi-conscious. It is far too late. The poison has saturated every organ in his body. His kidneys have failed. His liver is barely functioning. His brain is so damaged that even if he survived, he would never be the same. On September 10th, in the year 210 BC, in a makeshift imperial chamber far from his capital, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China, dies. He's 49 years old. His servants find him in the morning, his body still, his eyes open and staring at nothing. A thin trail of silver liquid, the last dose of mercury elixir, dried at the corner of his mouth. The official cause of death is recorded vaguely as illness. The truth, the mercury poisoning, is buried with him, hidden by the court officials who do not want to admit that the empire's greatest doctors killed the emperor. Here is the final, crushing irony that history preserves for us. The terracotta army he commissioned, those thousands of clay soldiers meant to protect him in the afterlife, they are still standing today, more than 2,000 years later. Their faces still detailed, their armor still intact. The Great Wall still stretches across China, visible from space, one of the most enduring monuments humanity has ever built. These constructions, built from stone and clay and human labor and the blood of workers who died by the thousands during construction, have achieved a kind of immortality. They have outlasted empires, wars, and dynasties. They survived the fall of the Qin dynasty itself, which collapsed just 4 years after the emperor's death. They survived invasions, revolutions, and the passage of centuries. But the man who built them, the man who wanted more than anything to live forever, the man who believed he could conquer death itself through force of will and mysterious elixirs, destroyed himself in the pursuit of it. The elixir he trusted, the substance he believed would make him eternal, was the very thing that stole his life, decades before his natural time. Qin Shi Huang's tomb remains sealed to this day, beneath a massive burial mound near Xi'an. Ancient historians, writing decades after his death, report that the tomb chamber is filled with rivers of liquid mercury, designed to represent the Yellow River and the Yangtze River, flowing eternally in his underground kingdom. Modern tests of the soil around the tomb confirm shockingly high levels of mercury contamination, far beyond what should occur naturally. The mercury content is so high that it poses a genuine hazard to excavation. Even in death, separated from his tomb by layers of earth and stone, he is surrounded by the poison he believed was his salvation. His quest for immortality became his tomb in more ways than one. The very substance he thought would free him from death became the architect of his death. And perhaps most tragically, he likely died, never knowing the truth, never understanding that he had been killing himself all along, that every dose of divine elixir was another step toward the grave. He died believing he had simply not taken enough, that immortality was just beyond his grasp, that if he could have continued the treatment just a little longer, he would have broken through. That is the final cruelty of mercury poisoning and of obsession itself. It can rob you of the clarity needed to save yourself.